Let's recap what we know so far about this situation. The Egyptair plane was hijacked by one person while en route from Alexandria to Cairo. He has been named by Egyptian TV as Ibrahim Samaha. The Airbus A320 plane was forced to land at Larnaca Airport in Cyprus. It's still at the airport on the tarmac. The hijacker was reportedly threatening passengers with a suicide belt. We don't have confirmation as to whether he actually had a suicide belt. There were originally 81 passengers on board and at least 5 crew, but most of them have been removed from the plane. This is an ongoing hostage situation, and we believe there's still 4 foreigners and all the crew are still on board that plane. Let's get a bit more from Charlotte. And Charlotte, this will be a very challenging situation for authorities and raises so many security questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just go back a couple of months ago when there was the Russian plane disaster. This was the flight that flew over the Sinai Desert. It blew up, killing more than 200 passengers on board. And at the time, that raised a lot of concerns about Egyptian security and how that explosive device was able to get on that plane. Now, as a result of that, in December, the Egyptian authorities actually commissioned a security review of all of their airports. Now, that's being commissioned for a global consultancy called Control Risks. Now, they started that in December. They said that was a 2 to 3 month process. So they would be at the point of finishing at the moment and looking at what those security risks at Egyptian airports. Obviously, this event today will be something that they will now be closely looking at. And Egyptian authorities said at the time this was about showing the world that it took security very seriously. Well, today they're going to be questioning that security once again. And just before we came on air, I was talking to one of my colleagues who lived in Alexandria, used the airport where this flight departed from today, and she said that it was a tiny airport and that there was a lack of security. Now, this is, of course, back in 2012, and there are, a number of years since, but a small airport, a lack of security is how she described it, and that's something that the Egyptian authorities will now be looking at.
Charlotte, just to clarify, the flight actually started off in Saudi Arabia. Is there a chance that this man perhaps could have started his journey there?
Well, there is a chance, but until that information is confirmed, all we know is that he was at least on the flight apart from Alexandria on to Cairo, which is an internal flight. This is an Egyptian national, let's not forget. His name, as we mentioned, is Ibrahim Samaha, and we understand that he may have been going to Cyprus for personal reasons.
And remind us who is left on board this plane, because negotiations have been happening with authorities and a number of passengers have been released from the plane, which will be good news.
Yes, absolutely. 81 people on board originally and at least 5 crew. Those are the figures that we've had. Now, when that aeroplane arrived at Larnaca Airport, there were negotiations. As a result of those negotiations with the hijacker, the number of women and children were let off the plane. Now, we don't know the exact figures, but we understand that all the women and children were let off the plane, and the people who remain are now 4 foreign nationals. We don't have confirmation yet of where those nationalities are from, and also at least 5 of the crew still remain on the plane. So at present, we understand at least 9 people are still on that plane on the tarmac at Larnaca Airport.
And we're getting more and more reports that suggest perhaps that this could have been a personal issue for this man rather than some sort of terrorist event. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, let's just look at terrorist events and hijack in the past. Most people who hijack a plane are looking to negotiate for something, whether that be asylum, whether that be safe passage. In this instance, we understand that Ibrahim Samaha has an estranged wife who lives in Cyprus, and he may wanting to reach out and contacting his wife. I mean, obviously, we will wait and find out more details about that, and obviously that will be part of the negotiation. But, he has let women, he has let children off the plane. So at the moment, it looks like the negotiators are at least able to get through to him and to deal with him. And let's hopefully this situation will resolve itself.
Okay, Charlotte, let's take this chance to look back at some other incidents regarding kidnapping of planes. Now Egyptair and both Larnaca Airport, they're not strangers to incidents like this, though this is the first hijacking there in more than 2 decades. The last time an Egyptair passenger flight was hijacked was in November of 1985. That flight was traveling from Athens to Cairo and was redirected to Malta. At least 60 people were killed after a shootout with the hijackers there. Then 7 years before that, Egyptian forces raided Larnaca Airport without authorization in an attempt to end a hijacking. But more than 20 Egyptian commandos were killed in an exchange of fire, leading to the severing of political ties between Egypt and Cyprus for a number of years.